discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. There's a noise in his head and he's out of control. And yes, it frustrates. Let's let him make his own mistakes. On the dance floor, watch him go now. Boy, those moves, I just don't know how. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. He's only 22 and he's out of control. How's he living with all of that unforgiving? On the dance floor, watch him go now. Boy, those moves, I just don't know how. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. There's a noise in his head and he's out of control. He no longer listens to A-sides. He made me a tape of bootlegs and B-sides. And every song, every single song on that tape said exactly the same thing. Why don't our parents worry about us? Why don't our parents worry about us? My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. He's only 22 and he's out of control. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. There's a noise in his head and he's out of control. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. My little brother just discovered rock and roll. Stay off the track.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, February 7th, 2018. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trump wants a military parade. Big one. And John Kelly just as racist as his boss. Meanwhile, a bipartisan agreement in the Senate on more money for war. And partisan gerrymandering could be in trouble at the Supreme Court of the United States. Meanwhile, Dems flip another deep red state house. Mike Pence vows the harshest North Korean sanctions possible. And Trump now looking to add lifetime caps on Medicaid, folks. You only need that health insurance for a limited period of time. Don't be greedy. Meanwhile, speaking of greedy, Disney leaves crumbs. Just crumbs. And a new report, we can grow our economy significantly by canceling all of our government-held student debt. And lastly, as the Pennsylvania Republicans attempt to impeach an entire Supreme Court, Scott Walker is now refusing to hold special elections. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome the whole cast and cavalcade. The Majority Report is here today. Michael is here, of course, and Matt is making sure that you hear my voice. Jamie is switching back and forth and apparently having breakfast. And Brendan is on the couch doing whatever Brendan does at these times.
Doing a great job.
A whole mix of stuff that we have no idea what's going on. Let's just start with this coming out of the Senate. As you know, tomorrow is the deadline for a government shutdown. Is that correct? It is tomorrow, right? They had punted. And according to the New York Times, just moments ago, Senate leaders have neared a far-reaching agreement to set spending levels on military and domestic spending for the next 2 years, supposedly breaking the cycle of fiscal crises that have bedeviled the Capitol since last summer. The accord was also expected to include disaster relief for areas hit by last year's hurricanes and wildfires. And here's the deal. In the House, now, both in the House and in the Senate, it appears that Democrats are going to settle for a commitment from the Republican leadership. All right, just take it easy. That they will address some form of a DACA fix. Right. They really mean it this time. And in the House, the Freedom Caucus, led by Mark Meadows, has said, we will not vote to raise any domestic spending. Now, maybe they could find their way to funding the Pentagon more. Maybe not. Who knows? But that sets up a specific dynamic. If Paul Ryan cannot get the entire membership of his Republican caucus to vote, more or less the entire, to vote for some type of government funding bill, he will need to rely on some Democratic votes. Therefore, Nancy Pelosi has a certain amount of leverage. And as such, the Senate deal sparked immediate opposition from the leader of the House of Democrats, Representative Nancy Pelosi, who said she could not agree to any budget deal that was not accompanied by a promised debate over legislation to protect the fate of young immigrants brought to the country illegally as children known as dreamers. She went on to say the budget caps agreement includes many Democratic priorities with the disaster recovery package and dollar-for-dollar increases in defense and non-defense budget. So this goes all the way back to the sequester during the Obama years, where everybody thought, not everybody, but there was some type of thinking in Democratic circles that, oh, Obama's really faked these guys out. He's going to say, if you're going to cut domestic, you got to cut military spending, and they'll never go for that. And then guess what? They went for it. So this basically reverses that sequester to a certain amount, dollar-for-dollar increases in defense and non-defense budget. So we'll give you $1 to kill people, but we want $1 maybe to pay for children's health care at a community center. She goes on to say Democrats have secured hundreds of billions of dollars to invest in communities across America. There will be billions in funding to fight opioids, strengthen our veterans and the NIH to build job-creating rural infrastructure and broadband, and to fund access to childcare and quality higher education. I have not seen any breakdown of this bill to assess those claims, but a dollar-for-dollar increase in domestic spending to defense spending is, at the very least, that. However, again, she can't support it without a commitment from Speaker Ryan, comparable to the commitment from Leader McConnell, which is, sort of silly.
What's the next phase after Lucy and the football?
Well, that's the whole point of Lucy and the football.
Yeah,
it just happens
it's just
over
endless.
and over and over
Right.
again.
Okay.
I mean, look, There's not a lot of leverage when you are the party that is out of power. There's not a lot of leverage, and there's also a certain amount of fear that by getting too aggressive, and I'm not even sure what that would look like. Theoretically, all of this could pass without any Democratic support, I guess, except for in the House. In the Senate. But you have 8 senators, maybe 10, who are nervous about their reelection. And in some weird ways, the idea now that wasn't present this time last year, that Democrats could actually take the Senate, and I think Ryan Grimm alluded to this a little bit yesterday, the idea now that Democrats could take the Senate has in some ways made them a little bit more timid. Which, look, it is always easier to operate with abandon if you don't think you have much to lose. And now there's a sense that they may have an opportunity to lose. I wouldn't approach it this way. I would get more aggressive. But
there is also the principle in sports, right? Like if you're playing not to lose, you tend to play more poorly. And also at a certain point, it's just like, I think especially for people like us, and not to personalize it, but to make at least the arguments we make, where we're constantly fending off all of these dumb arguments from all sides, and we are criticizing Democrats for all of their failures and all of their complacency and all of their sort of part of the problemness, but then also not indulging in dumb arguments either. It doesn't help.
It doesn't help. But it's also, the reality is that nobody's going to control Joe Manchin. There were reports that Joe Manchin was thinking about resigning, and I've never heard anybody's assessment, who I trust, that some other Democrat's going to win in West Virginia.
No, and Manchin's Manchin. That's a very distinct proposition. Like, I think you could
Heitkamp might be Heitkamp, and Donnelly might be Donnelly. Once you get outside of 3 or 4 of them, then it starts making a little more sense that you increase the party discipline. But once you get past 3 or 4, it may make a difference anyways.
But I think the strategic, to me, it's more in like how Schumer's managing it and what his instincts are. Because for what it's worth, especially in senators, I think especially in minority, there's only so much power you can exert, and you can't accept. Like Manchin, you just accept. Like, look, it's better he caucuses with Democrats, and it's great he voted against the tax bill and healthcare repeal. Cool. And you don't expect that much more from him. But as a general kind of cohesive party, go for it.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going for this. So the other day, and in a moment we'll get back to some of the news, but the other day, right, I mentioned that I had a man crate coming. Now, I know people look at me and they go, "You, man crate? I don't get it. How's that? These things don't." Yes. Mancrates.com. It's the only place to find awesome gifts guys love. You got Valentine's Day coming 7 days away. These things come pretty quick. I bet you still can make it. We're not talking some cheesy cologne sampler. Mancrates offered curated gift collections for every type of guy. The sports fanatic, the home chef, the outdoorsman. I'm sort of just like a little bit of all of those things. I'm sort of like a Renaissance man. You could check out classics like the NFL barware crate. But the problem is I'm a Renaissance man, but because I'm not committed to any of them, for me, if you're
like
shopping,
Da Vinci except bad.
I don't want the barware crate, the NFL bar. But I do know a lot of guys who would. In fact, I may get that for a gift. I'm not going to give it for Valentine's Day. But, there's a whiskey appreciation crate. I have a whiskey appreciation. There's fresh takes on traditional Valentine gifts like the jerky heart or salami bouquet. Both those things definitely there for me. I think around the office people know that I'm a big beef and fish jerky guy. Go to mancrates.com, pick the perfect gift, then wait for that magic moment. He'll fall head over heels when his gift arrives, and when he gets to pry open the wood crate with the included crowbar. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and every gift comes with a complete satisfaction guarantee. All right, you want to see the one I got?
Yeah, this looks amazing.
It actually is.
This is a very
awesome.
good looking.
So I got now, like, I have a cutting board. Can you see this? It's like a bamboo cutting board.
Yep.
And it's got my name on it.
It's mine.
It's mine.
Sam.
Just. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any confusion here at home as to whose cutting board this is? Well, let's just check the name. And this sweet-ass knife, which is, I'm super psyched about. This is a great, a Japanese-style dicing knife. It's beautiful. And, of course, it has my name on it. So, whose knife is that? Does anybody know? Oh, it's mine. I'm sorry, because my name is Sam, and it's right there. Go to mancrates.com/majority. Get 5% off. They don't offer a discount anywhere else. You can go get 5% off right now at mancrates.com/majority. Go check out all the different things they have, because there's a bunch of stuff. There's stuff like more woodworking stuff, which I also like. I'm not fishing for gifts. I'm just telling people. mancrates.com/majority. mancrates.com/majority. Now, one other note here, and people have heard me talk about my other obsession, which is dental hygiene. Because when you get up in my age, you start to realize, like, dollar for dollar, I could be saving a lot of money if I just brushed my teeth a lot better back in the day. When it comes to your health, brushing your teeth is one of the most important parts of your day. The return on investment in brushing your teeth properly is huge. That's why Quip has combined dentistry with a design to make a new electric toothbrush that packs just the right amount of vibrations into a much, much slimmer design at a fraction of the cost of traditional electric brushes. With Quip, you get guiding pulses. They alert you when to switch sides. So if you lose track, making brushing the right amount effortless. Comes with a mount. It sucks right onto your mirror. You can be used as a cover when you travel anywhere hygienically. That is the difference with this.
Deal.
Look, the reason why people don't use electric toothbrushes, which they all should, is because they're too big, they're too bulky, they don't fit on your little tiny sink in your apartment. They tip over, all this stuff. You can't travel with them, and then you get out of the habit. You can do all that with Quip. That is why the key to good dental hygiene is to brush your teeth on a regular basis with a good toothbrush. And
It's simple.
It's simple. Quip's subscription plan refreshes your brush on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5. That includes free shipping worldwide. No wonder Quip is backed by a network of over 10,000 dental professionals and was named one of Time Magazine's best inventions of the year. Find out yourself, folks. Quip starts at just $25. And if you go to getquip, QUIP.com/majority right now, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. Get your first refill pack free at getquip.com/majority. That's spelled GETQUIP.com/majority. All right, 2 products that I use on a regular basis. In fact, one on a daily basis, and I intend to, I'm going to cut stuff every day. That's my new...
Cut stuff, brush teeth. It's like chop wood, carry water
brushing
for you.
teeth, nice. But I'm going to commit to cutting stuff every day. All right. So let's get to what's happening on the immigration front. Of course, the immigration is becoming, I don't know, it's probably become. I mean, when you contemplate the idea that Donald Trump launched his campaign by saying that Mexico is sending a bunch of rapists over here. I'm sure some of them are okay people. And, hopefully we can put to rest, and this should have been done a long time ago. But John Kelly, who is, are we okay on sound over there? John Kelly, he is the White House POS, I think they refer to him. And he was explaining what's going on with the Dreamers. Now, as you know, under the program initiated under the Obama administration, about 690,000 Dreamers received deferred treatment status. In other words, look, we don't have the resources as a country to go after 11 million people who are here without documentation, proper documentation. Therefore, we're going to make a prosecutorial discretion decision. We are not going to come after these groups of people. If you are in that group of people, rather than have you not be able to get a job, have you not be able to do this, we want you to come into the system so that we're aware of you and we can keep track of you, but you'll be able to work, be productive citizens. We're going to issue a special Social Security card, all of it. That was what the DACA program was. Here is John Kelly explaining why Donald Trump is offering more than 690,000 people the opportunity to receive a permanent status in this country, and simultaneously exhibiting how much of a racist he is.
Audio. So you're going to hear from General John Kelly. I want you to listen.
Pause it for 1 second. He is not a general. He used to be a general. He's not a general. Right now, he is the chief of staff, or the POS, I think they call him.
Audio. So you're going to hear from General John Kelly. I want you to listen, and then we're going to talk about it on the other side.
There are 690,000 official DACA registrants, and the president sent over what amounts to be 2.5 times that number to 1.8 million. The difference between 690 and 1.8 million were the people that some would say were too afraid to sign up, others would say were too lazy to get off their asses, but they didn't sign up. So the president shockingly said, okay, 1.8 million, and then probably the biggest shock was in a path to citizenship.
All right, so contrary to this bigot's perspective that there were 9 million people too lazy to get off their ass, the fact is that only 1.3 million of that 1.8 were even eligible for DACA last year. Eligibility requirements are rather strict. They have to do with how long you've been in the country. So some people haven't aged into it yet. You have to finish a certain amount of school. And they haven't aged into that yet. So now we're talking about closer to 500,000 or 600,000 people as to why they didn't sign up. And Kelly is probably correct that a significant number of these people were too afraid to do so. Because here's a possible scenario you are facing as someone who was brought to this country as a child, as an infant, as a 2-year-old, as a 7-year-old, as a 9-year-old. And now it's 10, 15 years later. You have no familiarity with that country that you came from. You speak English just like your classmates do. You can go and sign up, let the government know where you live, go in for your regular meetings. But what happens if Barack Obama is no longer president? What happens if, say, the next president turns out to be a racist piece of crap? What happens if that president decides that he's going to start rounding up people like you? What happens if that president decides to use you as a political tool and not renew your status? Seem far-fetched? I bet you there's a lot of those people right now who are quite happy that they did not sign up for that status. Not to mention, it costs hundreds of dollars. $500 to apply, $500 to renew every 2 years.
What is the justification for that? Does it take that much labor to process each application?
1/3 of the people eligible for DACA lived in families with incomes below the federal poverty line. So the idea of paying $500, maybe there's a couple kids. That's just way impossible. So it's possible that there are some people who are just too lazy to get off their asses to sign up. But it's much more likely that other reasons are why. People who fall into that broad category of dreamers but don't necessarily fall into DACA eligible would not have signed up. And for most of those reasons, they're looking pretty smart and prescient now. Meanwhile, here's a nice story that should warm your hearts about how we're making America great again. A Kansas professor and father of 3 who has lived in the United States for 3 decades. He's been here for 30 years. Saeed Ahmed Jamal, originally from Bangladesh. He is a chemistry instructor. He entered the U.S. lawfully on an international student visa in the 1980s. He has 3 children, ages 7, 12, and 14, all of whom are U.S. citizens. He has a record, a couple of speeding tickets from over a decade ago. He was headed to school with his daughter, taking his daughter to school on January 24th, when ICE officials showed up on his front lawn in Lawrence, Kansas, arrested him. When his wife tried to hug her husband goodbye, ICE agents stopped her, telling her that they would arrest her for interference. They're doing this, remember now, in front of the young girl. I think she's 12. Jamal had been given prosecutorial discretion to indefinitely stay in the U.S. under a policy formalized by Barack Obama. This is not the DACA. This was a different program. Because apparently they didn't realize under the Obama administration that this Kansan, who was a chemistry instructor with 3 kids and had a record of having a speeding ticket, was such a danger. Oh, he's also involved in his children's school board. He is now being held more than 150 miles away from his home at the Morgan County Detention Center in Missouri. In a letter shared on the family attorney's website, Jamal's oldest son, Tahsin, wrote that since his father's arrest, my little brother cries every night, my sister can't focus in school, and I can't sleep at night. No mention from this 14-year-old boy about how much more safe and American we are in this country. There's just going to be more and more of these stories. And again, people can ask what the purpose is. There's an answer. The answer is to terrorize immigrants in this country. Period. End of story. Anybody who can't figure out why the Trump administration is doing this is in denial. They are doing this to terrorize people. There's no other explanation. They don't even have the bandwidth, the capacity to deport all these people they're arresting. That's why you see figures like the arrests are up by 30, 40% year over year relative to the Obama administration, but deportations are not. It's because they don't even have the capacity to deport. They're just detaining and terrorizing. That's what's going on. ICE is boarding Amtrak trains, asking for papers. They're boarding buses, asking for papers. They're going into places of work, asking for papers. They're standing outside of courthouses asking for papers. This is a Twitter thread that Ronald Reagan brought to my attention from a immigration lawyer in, I think, in the Seattle area. It's a little bit long, but I think you should hear this. The day of my 9-year-old's client's immigration court hearing, this lawyer has a 9-year-old client. Going into the court hearing, we were riding in the elevator down from my office. A man got in and smiled and asked my client if he was going to school. No, I'm not going to school, he said. Well then, are you going to do something fun? Asked the man. Yeah, said my client and smiled. On the elevator ride up to the immigration court on the 25th floor, he giggled at how fast we were going. My client's mother, back in the U.S. after a 2012 deportation, she doesn't speak English or Spanish and couldn't explain to the border agents her fear of return, testified on my client's behalf since he is 9 and unable to explain why he would be in danger in his home country. She described her suffering in her home country, first in the aftermath of the Civil War, when the military, as part of their Scorched Earth campaign, burned down her entire village, as everyone who lived there was indigenous and therefore suspected of harboring guerrillas. Then, when the humiliation of that war took its toll on her family and her father turned violent against his wife and children, how she was afraid when her husband left to the U.S. to try and lift her and their 2 young children out of never enough food to eat poverty, because she'd heard of other women left behind by their husbands being raped by the gangs that had started roaming around their town. These women who were viewed as easy prey now that they no longer had men to protect them. So she didn't want her son to grow up with violence becoming a normal part of his life, as it had been a part of hers. So she brought him here being the United States. Halfway through her testimony, my client, remember, this is the 9-year-old boy, had been, I don't know if it's a boy actually, had been making paper airplanes, totally oblivious to what was going on around him. Yeah, it's a boy. Got bored. He got up out of his chair and started walking around the courtroom. He went over to the desk of the ICE attorney, whose job it was to argue for my client's deportation. Leaned on the desk, beamed up at the ICE attorney. Hi, he said. The ICE attorney smiled back at him and gestured to me to get my client to sit back down in his chair. The Department of Homeland Security's attorney's questioning of my client's mother was gentle this time. It is often not. He knew he had won and thankfully didn't feel the need to belabor the point. The judge politely asked my client's mother some questions. They were quite gentle too. She answered all of them with honesty of someone who had never thought about embellishing her story, because her fear for her and her son's safety was as real to her as the fact that the sun rises in the morning. The judge's clerk brought me a cup of hot tea because she could hear I was losing my voice. We took a short break. My client pointed at the framed photos hanging in the immigration court hall. Donald Trump, he said, and giggled. At the end of the hearing, the judge ordered my client deported. He said he had no doubt that my client's mother's fears for her and her son's safety were real and justified, but that they didn't provide a basis for my client to remain in the U.S. under our immigration laws. When we walked out of the courtroom, my client waved at the judge and said goodbye. Goodbye and good luck, said the judge. He advised me with a grin that bourbon was the best remedy for a hoarse throat. The last tweet in that thread is, it's hard to see the North Star sometimes in this upside-down world. So there's your daily sense of, what's going on in this country, the way we're treating 9-year-olds and 51-year-old fathers or 55-year-old fathers of 3 kids. And that piece of crap in the White House. I could be describing any number of those people. have the audacity to talk about the laziness of the people who, according to them, also walked miles and miles through the desert to get here to pay to make sure that their kids
that was the law
could eat some food.
Part.
Right.
And then the lazy part is not subjecting themselves to these people's terrorism.
Just disgusting. Just disgusting.
And where does the stereotype of the lazy immigrant even come from? I mean, undocumented immigrants cannot access most social services, so I don't really understand how they could possibly be lazy.
It's the cartoons of the Mexicans having a siesta. Honestly, I think that's a big part.
No, and it's also goes. I mean, there was like always a story. I mean, Irish people were dirty, Italians were whatever. I mean, there's always a narrative for whoever the target immigrant group is, always. And of course, like reality's not going to intrude on
that. Let's just have maybe just a little bit of good news before we head into the fun half. So that we can sort of
because all these people should just be held in I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's never going to be sort of criminal accountability for any of these people, but they should just be completely socially shunned and held in complete. I mean, we talk about like all the areas where we need to actually have dialogue and persuade and push our message out to people. Anybody involved in this on any level should be held
without
in complete public shame, contempt. They're totally out of the realm. They're
that
disgusting. Lawyer
sitting there for the DHS,
exactly.
Like I
That's
get
a
it.
bad.
You got to make money.
No,
you got a family.
You were following
Get up,
orders.
Walk out.
You were following orders.
Get up and walk out.
I've heard that justification before. We all have. It's disgusting.
Get up and walk out. We'll do a GoFundMe for any of those people who quit.
Yeah, remember all those rogue Twitter accounts that came about? Has there been a rogue ICE agent?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
No, and no rogue attorneys, and I mean,
I think to a certain extent, and it's probably not true of all of them. I think but a lot of these people go in because they want that power. They want that sense of power. Sickness. Absolute sickness. Here's a nice little story. Walt Disney announced last week, I guess it was about a week and a half ago now, that in the wake of the new tax law, because we were talking yesterday about crumbs, right? Crumbs. Crumbs is the new deplorables. I think I'm going to use that now. I actually thought that. I said that for the first time.
Crumbs for some of you.
Crumbs.
The new Republican tax policy for anybody who isn't a multimillionaire.
So Walt Disney, end of January, announced that it's going to spend $125 million on bonuses for their workers, and then another $50 million on an education program for some employees that presumably they're going to get a good return on investment on that, right? So that's more of a. So $125 million, that's a lot of money that they're giving in one-time bonuses. Why don't you take a guess? Michael, don't Google this. Okay. Michael, no, I don't want anybody to Google this. How much do you think they're going to save annually on their tax bill?
The executives.
I'm saying
or the company.
The company. The company. And when they say that on their tax bill, you know what they're going to do with that money, right? They're going to turn around and they're going to put it into research and development. No. They're going to put it into stock buybacks, which are essentially putting it into the pockets of the CEO and the board of directors. And of course, remember, now they get a much bigger tax cut than any of these workers. But let's hold that off for this second. How much money on an annual basis do you think Walt Disney will save from these tax cuts that, remember, on a corporate level are permanent? How much?
Tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of dollars. Well, give me a more specific.
$30 million.
$30 million. They're given $175 million in one-time bonuses, but they're going to make $30 million annually.
Oh, that was the right.
No, that's not even remotely close.
I was going to say.
Jamie, what do you think?
It's much larger, right?
Oh, it's much larger.
Okay.
Wait, how much are they giving in bonuses?
They're giving $125 million, $125 million in one-time bonuses. But they're getting annual tax cut.
I'm going to go with at least $500 million.
$500 million. That is more than 10 times.
Yeah, that sounds like a much smarter guess.
That is probably a smarter guess. Because, Jamie, you are a incredible skeptic of capitalism. So when Michael says 30 million, you're like, no way. I'm going to go with even more than 12 times that, 15 times that. Matt, what do you say?
I'll say 750.
You're going to say 750 because that makes sense, because I wouldn't go to you if it was less than 500 million. So Brendan, what are you going to say? 750 million. We're talking about annual tax savings in light of the $125 million one-time bonus they're giving to give their workers.
Drew, I'm really happy to be here on The Price is Right, and I'm going to go with $1.
$1. Well, that's smart. You get the downside. Well, you are all wrong. In fact, you are not only just wrong, you are wrong by a factor of 4 or 5 times more than the one-time bonus that they're going to give. Walt Disney will likely see an annual tax savings of $1.2 billion a year.
So how,
$1.2 billion a year. But they're giving out a one-time $125 million one-time bonus. That is 14% in year one. Are those bonuses going to be there in year two? That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. And yet they're
get your taxes down. No,
yeah. But they're lauded. They are praised. I got news for you. The value of that $125 million when the board of executives and the CEO are going to make massive, their bonuses, their increase in pay, their stock valuation.
Happiest place on earth.
Happiest place on earth.
I can't wait until the workers rise up and put Mickey and Minnie in the guillotine.
There you go. There you go. All right. I promised something.
I think that was one of the reasons that I was so underperforming in my guess was I took quasi seriously that you actually did have some positive news in that story.
No, I'm sorry. That was a head fake.
I was like, of course
Here's
that was
the
a head fake.
You should know him better than that by now.
But even
completely right.
Is there any person that you can find? Well, I'm sure you could find somebody, I don't know who it would be, who's even more skeptical of capitalism than Jamie, and still off by 600.
Dude,
can't even
no
contemplate the
myself.
cravenness.
I can't even. I mean, and is that including repatriation? What is?
There's deferred taxes
There's deferred
and whatnot,
taxes,
but they're having their
right,
tax
right,
cut,
right.
their tax rate cut by 40%. So there's some good news. In addition to the fact that the other day the Supreme Court refused to hear the Pennsylvania case where the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court found that Pennsylvania's redistricting was unconstitutional under the Pennsylvania state constitution and has ordered a process to rejigger those districts prior to 2018. There's another case that the Supreme Court itself did take, and that's Gill v. Whitford. And that was a case about the partisan gerrymandering that took place in Wisconsin. They did this in 2011. The argument was that it violated the Equal Protection Clause and the plaintiff's First Amendment freedom of association. This was a a ruling by a lower federal court. It went to the Supreme Court of the United States because despite the fact that Democrats won a majority of the statewide assembly vote in 2012 and 2014, Republicans won 60 of the 99 assembly seats. So Democrats got 51% of the vote, and they only got 40% of the seats. They get 51% plus, I should say. So this goes to the Supreme Court. Oral arguments were heard in October. It's quite possible that briefs are now circulating. So members of the court have a sense of how Gill v. Whitford is going. This is conjecture, but very possible. And Ian Millhiser has read some tea leaves and thinks that it is the case that the court is going to find that partisan gerrymandering to be unconstitutional in Wisconsin. This is going to have big, big implications. And the reason why he sees this is that there was a what he calls a fairly routine scheduling order on Tuesday about a case called Rucho versus Common Cause. It centers on congressional maps in North Carolina. As you know, last January, a panel of 3 federal judges struck down North Carolina's maps as being unconstitutional. Gerrymander. Republicans requested a stay from the Supreme Court later, which the court granted. Shortly after the stay, the plaintiffs in the case asked the Supreme Court to put that case on its calendar so that we could expedite this for the 2018 election, right? If the court had granted this motion, it would have allowed the justices to decide Rucho quickly enough to maybe redraw the maps in time for November's election. Everybody following me here? But the Supreme Court denied that request to expedite the case, and they're probably going to put it on in the next calendar year. Why does that tell us how Gill v. Whitford may have been decided? It tells us that because 2 judges dissented to the idea that we would punt this to the next term. And those judges were Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor. And if they know how Gill v. Whitford has been decided or will be decided, to have a sense of it because there are drafts going around, they would want this North Carolina case to also be resolved in time for the 2018 election because they would have reason to believe that it would change the maps, making it that much more important to have this done by 2018. It's just speculation, and it's not going to impact North Carolina in 2018, but it may impact Wisconsin in 2018, and it may impact North Carolina 2019 on. So there's your slight flicker of hope for the day, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry,
I feel so much more relaxed about the Disney theft of our entire tax code now.
Sorry, I couldn't do a little bit better than that. But
we're literally we're torturing 9-year-olds and destroying families and sending them to a place where actually, ironically, MS-13 is actually a serious threat and a national security issue. One of the reasons that some of those Central Asian countries have higher murder rates than Iraq. And then Disney and the rest of the corporate class and oligarchy stealing all of our assets, but they're going to get a good PR day. But there is a little bit of twinking going on with Wisconsin redistricting.
And we actually may get to a point where if one party wins the majority of the votes, they more or less will get, that same commensurate amount of representation.
Fucking A.
You gotta be pretty psyched about something like that, right?
That's pretty groundbreaking.
I know it's a little bit crazy, a little bit leftist.
Maybe that party will also abandon their failed incrementalism.
It's
and
very
do something
possible
for immigrants. I don't know.
Let's hope so.
A girl could dream.
A girl can dream.
Or maybe not.
We'll see.
Never know.
Maybe, listen,
It's very
it's very, very difficult.
There's only a few things that aren't complicated. Marginal tax breaks from Massapequa and every single thing that Goldman Sachs wants always. Oh, and Israel.
Yes.
That's where you can be bold when you're melting those Palestinians with white phosphorus because Hashem said so. Okay, press conference time.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, fun half. Don't forget, it is your support of this program that makes it possible day in, day out. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Become a member. Just a couple of quarters a day, but it makes this show possible. We cannot do it without you. Check out last night's TMBS. Apparently, what's his name? Felix
Biederman.
Felix Biederman used my coffee cup. And so wasn't very excited about that. There's a flu going around.
He came in and he said, where's Sam's coffee cup?
I'll tell you something. Honestly, you can ask Brendan this morning. It was like, it took me about 30 seconds to come in. I didn't think I had my coat off. And I was like, where's my coffee cup? And I didn't see it near the sink. And I didn't see it on my table. And I didn't see it in the bathroom. And I was like, what? I specifically left my coffee cup right up to...
Wait a second. Did you just tell on yourself there?
No. I didn't bring it into the bathroom.
Do you take your coffee cup in the bathroom?
No.
But why else would it be in the bathroom?
I don't know why it was on your desk either.
Well,
maybe Felix Biederman would have brought it into the bathroom.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, yeah.
I know where I left my coffee cup, and so there's only so many places in the office.
That's some type of nutraceutical protocol where you drink your coffee in the bathroom.
I mean,
oh my God. Clearly designed.
It's the best way to optimize nutrition.
There you go.
This is a clear alpha male provocation.
So, no, it's not that. It's actually like totally beta because I was just like, I don't want to. There's a flu.
What is alpha about? He gave my coffee cup.
I had to scrub it. I had to scrub the coffee cup.
And I'm going to cough on my new cutting board.
I had to put it. Yeah, exactly.
Every state provocation. Yeah. Or the complete accident. I don't know.
Well, I don't know what was going down.
Cuckology.
It was like. Also, someone urinated in my office.
Well, that was me. I've been doing that for years.
Anyways, so I don't know what else happened on that show, but check out TMBS. It's on our YouTube channel or on iTunes, and you could, I don't know, maybe figure out what he was doing in that cup. Also, check out Jamie's Patreon, Jamie Peck, patreon.com/Jamie Peck.
That's right.
And justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. See you in the fun half. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Let's go to the phones. You're calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Josh from Chicago.
Hello, Josh from Chicago. Apparently, you're not really from Chicago. You hang out at a lot of DSA meetings in the New York area.
No, Sam.
Well, you got busted, man.
Jamie.
I did not say that you don't live in Chicago. I merely said that I met you in New York, and that is incredibly vague. Sam inferred some things from that.
I could put
it may or may not be true.
I could put two and two together. Let's put it that way.
I trusted you, Jamie.
I
trusted you.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I ruined your infosec.
Okay.
That you know what?
Nice try.
Water under the bridge.
Nice try. What's next, Josh?
Busted. Well, first of all, I want to say that I plugged your show the other day on the train. I was laughing so hard listening to the Martin Luther King capitalist impression that this person came up to me and asked what I was listening to, so I said Majority Report. And then I also told the person to check out the brilliant Michael Brooks show, because it's really groundbreaking.
Well, I'm glad that he is in the bathroom and can't hear
He's
this.
not here to take your
Probably
compliment. Sorry, Josh.
But that's fine.
Okay.
Oh, I feel really bad now.
No, don't worry. It's fine. Actually, I want to talk about the breaking news about the DACA deal that did not go through or whatever. I'm increasingly unimpressed with Chuck Schumer's leadership. And, I guess I don't... Seems like he doesn't even have a strategy. It's more just like if he thinks that Mitch McConnell will be moved by people protesting or people being deported, he's dumber than I thought.
Well, here's the thing: is that we know that there's not going to be these mass deportations. There's just going to be a bunch of people who are not allowed to work for an extended period of time. Like it's not, according to what we know from both Ronald Reagan and talked to other people. There's no sense that there's going to be this mass deportation starting in March, but rather people are just going to lose their legal status and they're not going to be able to work. All these people have these special Department of Homeland Security issued Social Security cards, which allow them to work. And the first thing that's going to happen is they're not going to be allowed to work. And that means that their kids, we saw that video of Jimmy Kimmel with a woman who was a DACA recipient. She had an infant baby. She's just not going to be able to work. Her husband's going to go off, or her fiance is going to go to the military, and she's not going to be able to work. That's just, and that'll go on for a while. It's going to take them a long time to process all these people.
Yeah, and I have a friend who's DACA recipient too. He basically said it's basically by the end. It's not necessarily that he's worried about more like getting rounded up and deported. It's more that they're going to take away like the jobs. They're going to take away things like that. I guess, but my question about like the Schumer thing in particular is, I actually thought of a leader who actually would be really good. Because I agree, like, people are suggesting Bernie or stuff. Like, you can't have someone who's going to run for president be leader of the Senate. But I really like Jeff Merkley a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought he actually showed a lot of leadership. And he's the only reason they ended up protesting. Who's the judge that got appointed?
Gorsuch. Yep.
Gorsuch. His leadership on that's the only reason they ended up protesting Gorsuch, because I'm actually kind of convinced that he might have even gotten like a vote in the Senate and he would have passed without going to a filibuster, without like his leadership on that. And I don't know if you think that's a good idea for him to be leader of the Senate, but he didn't fold on the DACA thing, and I don't know.
I've heard that is something that I have heard quite a bit from people that a guy like Merkley would be very good. And you mentioned he was the only person to endorse Bernie, but more importantly, in terms of his role as a as a potential leader, he was able to do so in a way that did not alienate anybody else in the Senate, right? I mean, so he was able to go out on a limb and still maintain relations. That to me suggests someone who is pretty smart in knowing where exactly what the tolerance level and how one finesses that amongst his colleagues. But
I hear that he's very bad for Israel. Where did you hear that from? I don't know. The grapevine.
All right. Well, thank you for the call, Josh, if that's your name. Calling from a...
They call him...
Never calling again.
Intifada Jeff. That's what they call him.
Calling from a 518 area code. I sent you a video. 518 area code. Who's this?
Hey, Sam. This is Addison from Ohio.
Hello, Addison. What's on your mind?
So I think my call about Judy's State of the Union response appears to have frustrated some people based on some comments on the videos and calls. And, I'm not going to restate my argument because I don't think it's necessary, and I think everyone on Earth would be bold by it. And I did consider rebutting some of the points the caller made, specifically about Lacey Green, which when I was listening to it, I was like, that doesn't sound remotely like what I recall happening.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Lacey Green, so let's not.
Well, so I was going to, go into that, and then I realized that, I'd have to refresh everyone about the caller's points about Lacey Green. And I thought instead of doing that, I'd just, mention an article that seems to mention most of that caller's points anyway. It's by Charlie Nash. It's called Feminist Commentator Lacey Green Slammed by Leftists for Dating Anti-SJW YouTuber and Wanting Open Debate, and it was posted on Breitbart in June of last year. So I think people might find that useful.
Okay.
Moving on, the only clarification I wanted to make about my call was I think people are kind of overblowing it. I don't want Judy excommunicated. She's a part of the show. I think it's important for us as her being part of the show to, be willing to criticize her for politics or for just using kind of lazy and subtly bigoted humor. I'm sorry if I framed it incorrectly when I called last week, but I think that's the main takeaway is we can encourage each other to be better without trying to excommunicate each other.
Yeah,
you know?
I always, even when I disagree, appreciate the criticism of what we're doing. I think there's value in it, and I think it gets people thinking. I may not agree with your criticism in this instance, but I do value it and think that, I value it because generically speaking, but I also value it just because also I think it's important to be thinking about these things. And I want to add, and so I appreciate the call, Addison, and thank you for clarifying that. But this actually brings up another good point that I saw this on Twitter. Now, I didn't follow this too much when it took place in real time. And this is that story of this guy, is it Brett Weinstein?
Brett Weinstein.
Apparently this guy was a professor at Evergreen. Is that what it was? Evergreen?
Mm-hmm. Evergreen State College in Washington.
And and forgive me if I get this wrong, but there was apparently a practice at that school where minority students would stay out for a day on a regular day, maybe each year, I'm not sure, to basically, I don't know, I guess go on a strike, if you will, to make people aware of the problems that minorities have had in this country, currently have.
Historical realities.
Yeah.
I think it's like a day of sort of remembrance and absence, essentially.
And apparently this year, or the whatever year this controversy took place, there was an expansion of it where white people wanted to go out to show solidarity, to participate, to indicate that there was an awareness of the reasons. Is that right?
No, I think what actually happened was that the organizers flipped, and it went from, instead of us leaving for a day, white people should leave for a day and have that experience. So it did shift from a protest to a mandated activity for other people, which is what Weinstein objected to.
And he was like, look, I'm here to teach, and I'm not going to not teach on that day. I think certainly a
totally valid response.
Reasonable response. And then apparently a lot of the students protested him. And did he get fired from?
Honestly, I don't remember how it all played out. I mean, I know he's not there anymore, but I don't know how all the various. I mean, like many of these stories, it seems like he was dealing with a ridiculous small situation that shouldn't really concern all of us that much. Okay, he resigned.
Okay, so he resigned because he didn't, and he was he felt like the students were creating too much pressure. And okay, fair enough. But in his retelling of the story, well, listen to his retelling of the story, because yes, this is like sort of the classic situation where it's just like, man, I got punched in the face by this Irish kid. That's why I think all Irish people are horrible. I'm constantly attacked by the Irish community, or something to that effect. Like where you take your own narrow circumstance and perceive it as part of some type of a greater phenomena. But it goes even deeper than that. So listen to him as he's talking to, of course, Dave Rubin.
I will say, the last time I was on your program, the only time I was on before, I remember you asking me what I thought of the left, and I quipped, what left? I haven't seen them in who knows how long.
Yeah.
That turns out not to have been right. They exist. I mean, yes, I hadn't seen them. But one of the funny things about my trajectory is that having been, the experience was very much like being ejected from the left.
Yeah.
And I got ejected from the left, and a lot of people on the right embraced me, which was weird. And then, even weirder, was the discovery of all the other people who'd been ejected from the left. And so the point is, this is sort of a cryptic left.
You're talking to the right guy.
Exactly.
Pause it for 1 second. I don't know what they're referring to as the left, but there's no way for you to be ejected from holding a political position. You can say, I decided I no longer subscribe to the idea that there should be universal free health care. Or I no longer subscribe to the idea that there should be, the state should make sure that everyone has a decent education. Or I no longer subscribe to the idea that we should have expanded Social Security. But there's no way for those ideas to eject you. You're mistaking holding political beliefs with being part of some type of team. And everything on this show and everything that they talk about is like how they're like a team. And I didn't do, but you can't be ejected. There's no president of the left. There's no pope of the left who can say you're excommunicated.
That's totally what I'm going. That's my new moniker, Pope of the Left, Michael Brooks. Excuse me, Ayatollah.
There could be a ton of popes on the left or ayatollahs.
But only one Ayatollah.
They just don't have authority. So this is what we're hearing is projection. And continue.
So the point is the discovery that there are a lot of people who you might, if you just looked them up online, you would come to the wrong conclusion about where their sympathies lay. That's interesting. And I think the conversation between those of us who have been, catapulted out and those of us who have landed on the right is going to involve the recognition that, in fact, we are all suffering from a kind of political PTSD.
All right, hold it, pause it for 1 second, because now he gets into something weird that I want to just take as a segment. So here he is. He thinks he's been catapulted by people who have forced him to change his perspective on a series of desired outcomes for society. This is formulating politics like literally with almost less depth than my daughter follows slime makers on YouTube.
I knew it. I knew that's where you were going.
Well, I mean, but honestly,
it's the right example. I just knew it.
Who? And this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, of course, you have all the neocons came out of the old left. You had people like Bork, apparently, even, who was a communist in college.
The only difference between those guys and someone like Weinstein is that, and not to their credit because their politics were loathsome, but they actually, their pivots were on policy changes. Like, I'm an Israel fanatic, and now my politics are changing. Or this whole civil rights thing is turning into there's a black colleague in my department, and I'm actually not so into that thing. This is literally like, I don't even know programmatically wise other than he dealt with a bunch of super irritating, ridiculous college students.
The rational response to this is not, I got ejected from the left. It is, I got ejected from Evergreen College. And those people at Evergreen College are horrible. And the administration is bad there. And I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I'm saying this would be the rational response. Like, to actually blame the individuals who are involved in this. But instead, for some reason, this guy perceives that somehow the notion of, hey, we should have health care for everybody, or that the means of production should be, owned by as many people as possible, or whatever it is his definition of the left is, somehow these ideas ejected him. It's very, very, very strange. It is, like, my divorce didn't go well, and so I'm going to be a men's rights advocate.
Well, actually, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Well,
I think that's
it's the same exactly it. That's the dynamic, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so hard, right? Because this guy definitely seems like an asshole, but I do think a lot about this question and how we can retain not just this asshole, but lots and lots of people who are maybe lost souls.
Probably by
go
not
either
calling
way.
him an asshole.
Well, yeah, sure. But, like, on a mass level, maybe most of these people aren't assholes like this guy, but maybe they're lost souls. They could go either way. And I don't want people to feel like the left is ruled by these social justice warriors who are just looking for a reason to sort of hound you out. But at the same time, we can't be putting up with people doing bad shit that we don't agree with. So we need to criticize, like our caller just said, we need to be able to criticize in good faith and show some sort of two-way empathy. And
I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's myopic.
Well, no, but I definitely would also, not only would I agree with that, I would go a step further, that we should not allow 18 to 21-year-olds to define this movement because they may not have the intellectual and the emotional maturity to assume leadership of this.
Oh, that's
and anybody
true.
who thinks that they do is a projection on their part. They want them to be the leaders of this movement because it's easier for them to deal with whatever issues they were dealing with. But here he goes on. And for the life of me, I don't know what he's talking about here. He's saying that we're all suffering some type of political PTSD. That is the tell. This guy is suffering from a post-traumatic stress. And from what it sounds like, I don't blame him. It sounds like he went through a very stressful period where his very rational response to what was going on at that school was perceived to be much worse than it was, or was deemed to be some type of malignant force. And he clearly was not prepared for it. He couldn't deal with the situation. Can't blame him for that. You're just sitting there, you're an academic, you think you're doing the right thing, and you get attacked by your students. All of a sudden, you're drummed out of the school because maybe you didn't follow what was going on at that school, and it was emotionally difficult for you to deal with. And the way that this guy is working through his loss and his separation from that school is to attribute these greater forces, these international left, drove me out of, as if that's where we would start. We need to clean house at Evergreen. That's what the left, that was the number one agenda. And then we can roll everything up.
I mean, this is a real tendency on the left, though. I don't want to pretend that it's not.
No doubt. no doubt there are people on the left and on the right, but you don't hear any of these guys here saying like, you know what, I got to say, the reason why I feel comfortable on the right is that the neo-Nazis, they completely welcome me in and don't judge me for not hating black people enough.
But there is an irony that, like, I just sent you that Exiting the Vampire Castle essay, which is a really important piece on this. And, you know, Adam Proctor, who I'm friends with, who does the work on Dead Pundits, like, there's a lot of problems with the type of that sort of, there is a left purity politics, which is really bad just even for the brands. But what I find so frustrating is that, especially because that critique is there and actually does exist inside the left. If a guy like Brett Weinstein was really going to be rigorous, and he still seems to claim that he has some left politics, he would have gone in that lane and not been on Dave Rubin, who, I mean, it's obvious what Dave Rubin
But the whole point is like, I'm embraced by the right. What, you as a person, they have taken you in. That's great. That reminds me of that whole Dr. Death documentary they did with Errol Morris, where this guy who just happened to be an expert on gas, executing people with gas, got taken in by the Holocaust denial movement, and he had friends. He didn't have to adopt their perspective on this. Like, to talk about these things in ideological terms, it's very odd. But here we go.
Of the recognition that, in fact, we are all suffering from a kind of political PTSD. And that, in fact, many people who are on the right are there because they've been traumatized by really low-quality, dangerous leftist thinking, but that does not make their right-of-center position natural. I'm not saying there are no natural positions over there, but many people who are there because they have run from things that they have heard on the left. And once we give up on the idea that anybody on the map today has the answer with respect to the policies that we are supposed to embrace. Once we say, actually, everybody's policies are a failure. If we were to enact the libertarian program, it would fail for game theoretic reasons. If we were to enact the socialist program, it would fail for game theoretic reasons.
Same thing.
Right. So the point is, okay, fresh sheet of paper with respect to policy. Now there's a lot for us to talk about, starting from values. And there are a lot of people who, if you ask them to list their values apart from policy, would fall out on the left. So, wow, is it an interesting moment that conversation may be about to get started, and to be in a position to actually influence it, I must say, is pretty exciting.
So he wants us to organize based on values and not policy goals or certain material needs we may share.
Okay, and then after that 5 minutes of us writing down on a list of paper what our values are, then what are we going to do about it? Then we're going to get back to the arguments about policies, right? I mean, I'm a little bit lost with that last part.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to judge a tactic based on whether or not it grows our coalition as the left.
Oh,
and
I'm not in any way excusing what was going on at Evergreen, but he is, and listen, this guy's a professor. I'm giving him a certain amount of credit for ability to think, intellectually. And I think it's one thing for him to say, like, look, there are certain tactics in certain corners of the left that are destructive. But to say that because of these tactics that took place in literally this corner, in this small college, one end of the country, my ideology has changed.
Well, he's actually, it's weird. He's not exactly saying that, though. He's actually saying that people are finding themselves on the right, but that's not where they naturally fit. He's saying something actually more convoluted than that. I'm not, but the problem is, though, is like the other thing. There was a young professor in Canada recently, like a teaching assistant. I always forget her name. She's in her early 20s. And as part of a class, she played a Jordan Peterson clip, literally to illustrate like the same way you would watch material from anybody that was pertinent to a debate. She did not endorse what he said. She was not a proponent of him. She got called into a meeting with her department, and they reamed her. And one of them even threatened her with the legislation that Jordan Peterson has had such a conniption and conspiracy theories about. So you have this thing where it's like, he has a paranoid delusion about it that's ridiculous. But then some of these, like some people see fit to basically fulfill his stereotype and conspiracy theory, and it is super destructive. And now she's on the circuit. Now she's going on Rubin. Now, and especially in her case, to be really fair, I mean, she's literally like 24 years old, and she was bullied and terrorized for doing her job. So she sees like, yeah, the hell with that. I'm going to go talk about it. It is a very bad look.
There's no doubt, and to extrapolate on these things, I mean, this is the functional equivalent of in a school in Wisconsin. Yep. They have replaced the words "Silent Night" with "First Night," and this is indicative of a war on Christmas that is going on.
That's absolutely. This isn't a war on Christmas, and it's an anti-SJW cottage industry on the right, and that is its own beast. And these people are totally disingenuous and cynical, but we still don't need to play into it.
Yeah.
Right? Like we still. Also, the only difference
we're not.
No, I meant the royal. Well, I mean
that's the point. Like,
dude, I am the Ayatollah of the left. Sam,
no, but
so
this is exactly my point.
Those professors in Canada,
we are not.
We're not on the show. No.
Some people might, because whoever we are the people in this room, do not have control over everybody. If we're sitting with some of those students from Evergreen, and we could have a debate with them about what is an effective tactic, but we are not them. In fact, the vast majority of people are not them.
That's right.
On the left.
Right.
I mean, not to sound like a hippie or anything, but people really just need to talk and communicate interpersonally way more than they do.
Fucking hippie!
Can I use a somewhat personal example to illustrate this? I recently had the chance to help the DSA figure out, my DSA chapter figure out what to do if, say, some guy gets drunk and acts like a creep at a party. Because on the one hand, we want women to feel comfortable, at our events. On the other hand,
Please don't use Michael's name.
We don't want to have.
I was just thinking of exactly the same joke.
I know,
but thinking of who to use it on.
We don't want to hound Michael out of our movement and make him feel aggrieved or attacked. So, I'm
going to start playing video games.
Yeah. You have to do it in a way that's empathetic and one-on-one. And I really think that 9 times out of 10, that's going to do the trick, because we need our coalition to have everyone. So something like that scenario might have class issues involved. I don't know. It might have cultural differences involved, but you got to be empathetic to everyone, because women are an important part of the working class. And, this guy who maybe acted like a creep at a party, also an important member of the working class. So I hope that we can work these things out together and not have to go on Dave Rubin about it.
Do ladies work here?
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 207 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Thanks for taking my call. This is Colin from Maine.
Hello, Colin.
Let's see. First of all, I wanted to say a couple things. I wanted to thank Jamie for her contributions and insight. I really enjoyed her on the show, so thank you, Jamie.
Oh, thank you.
And quick shout-out to the Quip toothbrush. I got one for my wife and I for Christmas, and we both love it, so I can buy one. They're
awesome.
Cool.
They are. They're great.
But what I was calling about is Medicaid work requirements. And you had a guest on your show maybe a couple weeks ago now where you were discussing it in an interview. And up in Maine, we have the self-proclaimed Trump before Trump was Trump, Governor LePage.
Right.
And he's pushing hard for Medicaid work requirements. And I am one of those people who would be required to work because I receive Medicaid because of my daughter and because I'm unemployed. And in the interview you had, and I can't remember the guy's name who you were interviewing, he brought up the point that these low amount of unemployed people who are on Medicaid are not exactly, loafing around, living life large, and, just soaking up the system. It's pretty fucking miserable. And what has stopped me from being able to work for the past several years is I've got a variety of emotional health issues. Besides painting shit on the walls or posing an imminent danger to society, I'm pretty fucking crazy, and so it makes it hard to hold things down, or makes it hard to hold a job down.
Right.
But I'm trying to get back into it. I just got a job. I had to start at the bottom because I do have a criminal history. But got into school in the fall semester, so I'm trying to turn this around a little bit. But all my medical care, I go to a psychologist. A couple of psychologists. I go to med management. I'm a pretty expensive patient, and excuse me, getting a little caught up. I'm concerned, of course, about what my health coverage is going to be like. So I'm, after receiving, and I received a letter saying from the DHHS saying that I was required to either get into school or get a job. So I'm not sure.
Is that right?
Where? That's right. I'm not sure where this bill is, but I thought that it had already gone through, or this is already in place, or maybe this is something new or additional. But
it is. My understanding is it was a waiver that the DHS. I'll look into this, but my understanding, and I believe there were 2 states, and I don't know if Maine was one of them. But the DHS was starting to offer waivers to states to allow states to impose work requirements onto Medicaid, and presumably, I guess DHS would be. I'm sorry.
I think Kentucky was one of those states.
Kentucky is definitely one of those states. I don't know what the second state was, and I didn't think it was Maine, but we'll look into that. But that's interesting. And did you follow up on that letter?
I have to take another look at it, because after seeing that, this was in the Bangor Daily News on Friday, and after seeing that, I got to go look back at the letter and see if that's going to be something that's going to be in place later, or if this is an existing work requirement, or exactly what.
Huh.
But I remember when I got the letter, I went down to the local state-funded career center, and it was a pain in the ass trying to find a job, again, with a record and with not being out of work for 2 years. The only thing that was available to me was driving a truck overnight just above minimum wage. So, it's going to be difficult for a while, but
and do you have primary responsibility for your daughter?
I do. Yeah, my wife is on Social Security disability, so we get about $1,200 a month for my daughter, and for my wife, and we've been living off of that barely. That's fucking difficult to do. And I've tried to hold jobs and other responsibilities in the past, and that's been difficult. But I think I'm to the point now where I'm ready to move on. But that's besides the point. It's just this is pretty horrible what they're doing. Making people on Medicaid work that aren't already doing so, because, like you said, there are so many things, or like the interviewee said, that there are so many things that don't meet the requirements for state or federal requirements for disability,
right,
but that are disabling. And so, that really rung true with me, because I'm sitting here right there in that very same position.
Well, hang in there. Good luck. I just I wish you the best, and I appreciate you telling the story. Your story.
Yeah, of course. I just want to make people know that it's real, that it's happening, and that there are not many people leeching off the system. I mean, I've observed that firsthand. I've seen the numbers secondhand, and the amount of people taking advantage of federal aid, food stamps, Medicaid, it's practically non-existent. You have a few assholes, of course, but
right.
It's practically non-existent.
Everywhere. In any endeavor, in private corporations, in large institutions, in small institutions. It's, yes, humans are humans, and there's always a couple who are going to be a problem. But the idea that you would make so many suffer to make sure, or presumably attempt to, is just simply, it's ludicrous. But I appreciate the call.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for hearing me out.
Thanks,
and as
man.
always, great program.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the idea that these kind of work requirements are designed to help people in any way or to lift them out of poverty is just ridiculous. It's designed to coerce more people, as many as more than already are, to join the minimum wage job market so that workers have even less power than they did before. That's the only person that benefits. Well, not person, but it's capital.
And also the attempt to basically come up with more politically palatable restrictions and narrowing of Medicaid. Here's another. According to McClatchy, after allowing states to impose worker requirements on Medicaid enrollees, the Trump administration now pondering lifetime limits on adults' access to coverage. Now, this is the problem that we literally just got rid of in private health insurance under Obamacare. It would be a first for Medicaid. It would be a dramatic policy change that would recast government-subsidized health coverage as temporary assistance by placing a limit on the number of months adults have access to Medicaid benefits. So contemplate this for a moment, okay? You can go out and get a job, minimum wage, slightly higher than minimum wage, much higher than minimum wage, and have no health insurance. And even if you're eligible for Medicaid, if you've been on there for X amount of months, maybe it's 12 months, maybe it's 24, maybe it's 36, maybe it's 48, you need health insurance. It would be a massive breach in the nation's social safety net.
Yeah, people talked about death panels with Obamacare, but this is as close to a death panel as I've seen proposed.
Yep. According to this, there were waiver requests from Kentucky and Indiana to terminate Medicaid coverage for able-bodied enrollees, as defined by people who are not eligible for Social Security disability. Like our caller just said, and like we've heard in the past, takes, in some cases, 2 years to get on Social Security disability. They reject something like 60% of the applications. According to this, there are 5 states, Arizona, Kansas, Utah, Maine, and Wisconsin, seeking waivers from the Trump administration to impose lifetime Medicaid coverage limits. So as far as I can tell, in Maine, there is not a work requirement yet, but maybe that's in the offing.
This is one of the problems with means testing. Like maybe some people think that the means testing under Democrats was reasonable. I don't, but there's always going to be someone moving that line further and further until nobody has any benefits anymore.
Right. I mean, politically, it's much easier to narrow something that's means tested than going from something that's universal to not universal. Meanwhile, back to the, I guess we got to play this. This is a little disturbing. Not quite as disturbing as the, as what this administration is doing in terms of immigrants. Now, there's no sound involved in this. This is video image of Donald Trump walking onto Air Force One. When was this from? Yesterday? Yeah. And apparently it's become all the rage because people have figured out one element in which the what people refer to as hair stays on Donald Trump's head. And it comes via a gust of wind as he walks up the stairs. Let's watch that now. He goes up the stairs, and the wind blows. Oh, and there it is. Yeah, you can see. Oh, the back of his head is completely bald, it seems like.
Michael's triggered.
Michael cannot handle it. And apparently there's a close-up here. Somebody has a picture. Let's see that picture. Let's expand this picture. And
expanded and large.
Apparently there's a scar there. Is that what we're looking at? A scar on the back of the head. And it is apparently there is a technique. It's hard for me to talk about. Called scalp reduction. And I guess the idea is, and somebody help me out on this because I'm not familiar with this quite yet. The idea is that if you have a bald spot, like this gentleman does on the left.
Use the black guy in this picture to explain my operation. How dare you?
So you have a bald spot. The problem is one of two things. I mean, if you consider it a problem. The problem is either you have too little hair or too much baldness. Too much bald scalp. So one way people address this is by putting more hair on the scalp. But apparently another way you can address this is by getting rid of a lot of that scalp. So do I have this right?
Isn't it like really taut over your head then?
They split it and then yes, and it probably gives you...
It would explain that story about how Trump assaulted his wife, complaining about scalp pain.
Scalp really
and
I guess the idea is just like I feel like just right now, like I'm squeezing my head. I feel like I could pick up I don't know.
Is that comfortable for you?
It does not feel like I have an extra inch or two to lose of my scalp, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe in the back, I don't know.
Maybe they got to stretch the skin out a little bit and then it fits.
Anyways,
this is gonna really freak him out.
Listen, it's uncomfortable to view, but the only thing I can tell you is if there is any possible opportunity that this will upset Donald Trump's day or even a couple hours of it, I think it's important to talk about.
I'm just glad it's resolved because I feel fairly confident with a high degree of certainty that it is scalp reduction that explains Trump's head. And as a skeptic, I just feel like that was always unsettled and I wanted to know, and I feel that it's been resolved.
Now Matt can sleep at night.
But wait, we already knew this because we read the Ivanka.
It's
She
nice
talked
to see
about
it illustrated,
in
though.
Michael Wolff's
Ivana.
book.
Yeah, but I mean,
Ivanka.
It proves the dossier. It proves the dossier.
Yeah, so really the point is that the dude gets pissed on. That's the best conclusion.
Anthony,
I love that this horrifying image is our comic relief today.
Yeah.
It's also
let's play this Jeff Sessions thing because this is also...
you want horrifying images?
This is somewhat comedic. I mean, look. I'll tell you what's fascinating about this, right? So Jeff Sessions has some priors as he enters into the opioid or, just in broadly speaking, Jeff Sessions has some prior beliefs. In which that's what they refer to it. You enter into a study of something, and you come with your prior beliefs. Sometimes it's really hard to let them go. Now, for Jeff Sessions, he will always be able to maintain his deep belief that white people are significantly superior to all other races, and that all other races are inferior. But here he is. He also has a long time standing problem with marijuana because apparently it loosens the cohesion of groups like the KKK.
It lessens his opinion of the Klan. He was very disappointed to find out that they were indulging in the Negro's devil stick.
The problem is that when you are smoking a spliff, you could potentially burn in your hood. The whole key on a good hood is just to have eye holes.
That's not safe,
a mouth
gentlemen.
hole. When you put the mouth hole in, it starts to look cartoonish. So try to maintain some integrity and decorum. All right, so here he is at the Heritage Foundation. Now look, the opioid epidemic in this country, how it started, is really no longer controversial. There are a lot of facts out there. You can go back to the last time I was in Las Vegas and talking to a couple of lawyers who are going to be suing the opioid distributors in particular, who had some statutory obligations to inform the DEA of what was going on. Other people are talking about suing the manufacturers who claimed that their new brand of opioids were not addictive, and so on. These stories are quite are uncontroversial. And apparently Jeff Sessions has been introduced to them, but he still, even though he acknowledges that his very own experts say this, he still, I got a hunch it might be something else.
My goal for 2018 is to see a further decline. We had a 7% decline last year in actual prescriptions of opioids. We think doctors are just prescribing too many. We're just prescribing too many. Sometimes you just need to take 2 Bufferin or something and go to bed. But not these pills become so addictive. And the DEA said that a huge percentage of the heroin addiction starts with prescriptions. That may be an exaggerated number. They had it as high as 80%.
Pause it. Now, the DEA, right? The body tasked in our government with making this determination. The experts. Now, maybe Jeff Sessions has gone deep into this topic. Maybe he's gotten a PhD in this topic. But his own DEA says 80% of the explosion of heroin is a function of opioid addiction that starts with pills. The pills become impossible to get at one point because you've been doctor shopping or you've been pharmacy shopping, or they become more expensive, or there have been, over the past couple of years, more controls put on this, higher measure of criteria. And so what you do is you get heroin because it's cheaper and it's more available on the street because there's a whole black market involved in this. And like I say, this is not controversial. These are DEA numbers, but guess what? Jeff Sessions has a different idea.
I don't believe your Jew narrative.
They had it as high as 80%. We think a lot of this is starting with marijuana and other drugs too, but we'll see what the facts show. But we need to reduce the prescription abuse and hopefully reduce the addiction that's out there.
The facts show? Really?
Yeah, well, the facts show.
That's what you're going with?
Like the DEA's, maybe the DEA is coming up with this 80% number by just like, we got a dartboard and we just put different percentages on it and we just, bam, 80%.
No, he got them from a very important new report called Reefer Madness. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a documentary. It's very good.
I love that though. He just literally elevated his sort of like old prejudices and gut instinct over evidence, and then said
from the DEA,
from his own.
This is not like
it's not from the
marijuana growers of America.
Right.
This is the Drug Enforcement Agency.
Yeah.
Learn from the best.
DEA, soft on drugs, soft on Jews. That's what he calls it behind closed doors.
Yep, there you go.
No, but seriously, I mean that is actually just an incredible verbal process there. Here are the facts. I don't really buy it because I've got these prejudices. So we're gonna have to wait to see what the facts say.
Yep. we're gonna have to do a little work on the facts. I think we're gonna have to.
I mean, he basically just choreographed the entire process of the Republican Party's modern decision making.
We know that there's global warming, but we're going to need to, because I actually think it's God. Yeah. And so we need to get the facts.
So we're going to need to have the facts catch up with
that. We're going to have to like massage some things. So like when we say Godable warning.
Well, this was the story in the Washington Post about Representative Lamar Smith, who chairs the House Science Committee, threatened to cut federal funding for the World Health Organization's cancer research arm over its finding that the weed killer Roundup likely causes cancer.
Well, now we need to no. Okay, so the World Health Organization says Roundup causes cancer.
Exaggerated.
And I say that it's too much masturbation. And so we need to figure out what the facts are. And so we need to go through some type of situation.
Go through the data. Hopefully less masturbating will be happening. If I've always said as Attorney General, if less Guatemalans vote and less people are touching themselves, I will have been a success.
Folks, got some great news. A lot of people on a daily basis email us, call us, ask us, how can I see more Gorka? Well, ladies and gentlemen, your dream has come true. As you know, Sebastian Gorka is a doctor. And where else would you go to see the doctor but the rebel media? What is the rebel media? Is that
It's like alt-right Canada.
Alt-right Canada. Here we go. The Gorka briefing.
Who is Donald Trump? I had the high honor of working for the 45th President of the United States as strategist and deputy assistant to President Donald J.
Here's a clip
Trump.
of me on BBC Newsnight.
Who is the man? What do you need to know about him? So much rubbish has been written about this man. And he's had to put up with the kind of smears that would have made lesser men hide.
Wait, pause. So he's got a bunch of he's put the smears up there. Moby claims Donald Trump's Russian sex tape is 100% real. A new open letter. U.S. intelligence warned Trump about Russia perverted sexual acts. Donald Trump's prostitute scandal was filmed by cameras. Trump Russian spies. It doesn't say where these headlines are from, but
wait, Moby had beef with Eminem, and he didn't crawl under a rock.
Yeah, Eminem's still out there putting kind of pre-midlife crisis music.
And someone tell me what that button, that lapel pin Gorka's got there, but let's continue. This is the high order of white people.
And he's had to put up with the kind of smears that would have made lesser men hide under a rock somewhere.
Sure about that.
So let me share with you my experience, because I've worked for him during the campaign. I advised him. Then I had the high honor of coming into the White House, and I'm still in touch with him.
I'm still in touch with him.
What's the truth?
Pause
about?
Wait a second. Let me just go back to that last thing. That is such a lie that he is still in touch with Donald Trump that he actually has to look down. No, he's reading from a teleprompter, and he actually has to look down because he can't even look a camera in the eye.
I'm not even friends with Steve anymore. He's such a
Lately,
loser.
anybody.
He's a loser, but
Nobody's
me and Donald
talked to
is different. No one talks to him.
All right, let's just roll it back just a little bit so that we can watch. This is the kind of guy you want to play poker with because the tell is so big here. I'm still in touch with him. Okay. Let me get
because I've worked for him during the campaign. I advised him. Then I had the high honor of coming into the White House, and I'm still in touch with him. So what's the truth about this real estate mogul. Reality TV star?
Reality TV star.
Number one, if you've ever watched him on a TV show or give a stump speech or address in Congress, guess what? You know Donald Trump.
You know Donald Trump.
Him. That's who he is. What you see is what you get. Whether it's in front of a crowd of 60,000 people or in front of millions of viewers on a TV screen, or whether it's just you and him in the Oval Office. That's exactly who he is.
Can we also get hold of this background music? Because this is pretty dramatic stuff.
I said she was an eating machine in front of 10 million people, and I said she's an eating machine in front of 5 people. I think that that's actually totally true.
Yeah.
I think that he is a synchronized, absolute piece of garbage in both small and large settings. I say I want to have sex with my daughter in The View, and on Wendy Williams, say I want to have sex with her in private too.
But also, like, none of his behavior in public is inconsistent with anything in this dossier.
Right, exactly.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Like, oh, really? He did that? I don't know.
But I think for the audience that Gorka is talking to, he's saying, like, he's not just putting on an act that he's just a scumbag in public. He's a scumbag in private too.
He truly is a belligerent racist. I promise.
In the Oval Office, that's exactly who he is. There's no filter. There's no different version. In a city like D.C., where I live, full of individuals who have a public face, it's all polished, that classic D.C. smile, that grimace.
Wait, we're going to go back and we'll see that classic DC smile. I'm a little suspicious because I don't know that I could do that smile as well as Gorka. Perhaps Mr. Gorka is a little bit different in his private face.
His classic DC smile does not look very happy.
Let's look at that.
Well, no.
Let's see it. Watch it again.
It's all polished, that classic DC smile.
That's really good.
That's about right.
Those people behave differently behind closed doors. This man doesn't. He's
on, girls.
exactly as he is in private, as he is in public.
In public.
Because he's such a fine, upstanding citizen in public.
Wow. I wonder how much they get. How much money does this guy get for that?
I heard that the Romney family stayed here. Let's have a tea party. One thing in private, another thing in public.
You only have to be a code switcher if your dad was poor.
Why would I have to code switch? My dad bought a casino for me. It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, that reminds me. We've just watched Gorka there talk about Donald Trump. But look, Donald Trump is not just about guys like Gorka who are in some type of room that has a faux stone backdrop pretending to that he's still in contact with Donald Trump. No, Donald Trump is also about the everyman, the mans you don't hear from, the ones who follow Asian women off of like a train or public transportation to make sure that they feel uncomfortable being in their own country.
Asking me if I speak English and then if I'm American, get the fuck out of my face.
You're the fucking one that's stupid. Fuck you.
Go
back to Asia. Go back to Asia.
Go
Let's nuke
back
you.
to your shithole asshole.
Trump, God bless Trump. We're gonna nuke you guys. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're ugly and you have a flat face and an ugly nose. Flat face and an ugly
then
nose.
Why are you talking to me, asshole?
Fat
then
face
why the
and
fuck
ugly
are you
nose.
talking to me?
Flat face and ugly nose. And guess what? You guys have small dicks. Try to beat that. You can't.
Try getting laid, asshole.
I think, though, to be fair, that's more of a John Kelly thing than a Trump thing.
How many of these videos have we seen still now where like these people cite the president to justify
not helping
racism?
Not helping. But in all seriousness, when does that guy get on Rubin?
Well, that's what I was just thinking. Like,
question.
when are we going to see the guys who come on to this show and who are like, I got ejected from the right because this guy was talking about Trump. And that's why I subscribe to the idea that we should have universal health care and provided free by the government.
I found myself on the left because it offended me less that children had inhalers than guys stalking Asian women on the street. I got ejected. Yeah, but as another case, though, you could see her. She was really suppressing his speech, and she didn't have a response to his arguments. He said Asians had small dicks, and she didn't say, here's a study that proves it's wrong.
No,
she can only resort to ad hominem.
Yep.
And that's why the left fails.
Yep. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And here's the other thing. If the left would just take the time to intervene in that situation and provide some light critique of, Korean Americans,
right,
then the right wouldn't be able to fill that vacuum.
Right, because then this guy would feel comfortable. He'd say, okay, these people on the left, they acknowledge she has a flat face.
Exactly.
So now I can vote for Medicaid.
Exactly.
But that's the problem. We don't do that because we're so arrogant.
So arrogant. So arrogant.
I try to have empathy for everyone and always look at the economic source of this guy's pain that's causing him to be a racist. But I'm also very comfortable saying, like, fuck that guy. So it's a dialectic.
That would definitely be a deal that I would cut. Like, I always wish there's some type of grand bargain that we could cut with ISIS that would involve shipping people like that over there. Like this.
Let's just make a trade. Let's make a deal. Yeah. Calling from a 267 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, everyone. It's Fran from Philadelphia.
Hello, Fran. What's on your mind?
Hey, Sam, I just wanted to call and say that Philly owes you a big thank you for your role in the Eagles win. Or maybe we should be thanking Mike Cernovich. And it's my contention that it was Sam's rehiring for MSNBC that was a cosmically significant space-time shockwave event whose ripple buckled the ACL of Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz mere days after Seder's reinstatement. So I think it was you who injured Carson Wentz with your hubris. In the resulting Eagles double down, with backup QB Nick Foles for the rest of the season ultimately strengthened the team strength and focus and set them up for success for the next MR-sourced curveball, which was Malcolm Butler's benching, which shook the Pats to their core. A weakness for the Eagles to exploit. And here, I have it on good authority. That Pats actually have a deep MR following, along with a well-kept secret leftist undercurrent that's been growing leaps and bounds since Tom Brady hung a MAGA hat in the Pats locker room. And the sides that were taken that divided the locker room in half actually came from a hot-headed debate about Sam versus Jamie, i.e. social Dems versus anarcho-commies. Why was Malcolm Butler benched? He was the most vocal, high-profile defender of Jamie and ultimately bought a copy of The Conquest of Bread for Bill Belichick and the rest of the Pats management. They decided they needed to shut that shit down to set an example for the other would-be revolutionaries. So there you go. I hope you're proud of yourself. I'm certainly happy about it.
I can't believe you let all of that happen.
That was a really disgusting phone call. You're everything that's wrong with the left. I just hung up on you.
You're ejecting us from the left.
You're ejected. Consider yourself ejected. Calling from a 612 area code. You know what? It was amazing. Saul was saying to me, it's because Tom Brady dropped the ball. It bounced off his fingers. I was like, wow, that was you're right. Calling from a 612 area code. Who's this?
Hello?
Hello?
Is this, am I talking to you now?
Yes. Who's this?
This is Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. How are you?
I'm fine. And I'm glad to call and talk about something other than my gender identity, which I've spoken about before, but I wanted to bring up something completely unrelated.
Please do.
Yes. Somebody that I know that Jamie admires greatly passed away recently, Ursula K. Le Guin. And she had, there was an article about her written in Jacobin, which I wanted to alert people to and ask them to read because it is extremely good. And it's on topic with some of the things you've been talking about. And I just go to hashtag Majority Report, hashtag Resistance. I posted a link to the article, and it talks about her stories and writings about political issues and how they relate to today. And I was thinking about that actually the other day. I was watching a Netflix show called Altered Carbon, and it's another one of those dystopian science fiction futuristic stories with lots of blood and lots of sex, but it's just the same old visioning of the future as the ultra rich are in total control, and that we have the hapless gumshoe detective story who is investigating some crimes and stuff like that. And in this article, she criticizes the lack of imagination of political futures that we have in our culture today. And I think that that's generally true. We have a lot of science fiction these days, but it really lacks an imagination of an actual future. It just seems to assume that our current political organization or social organization is just the natural state of affairs. And what Ursula K. Le Guin says in this article, A War Without End, is that these things aren't necessary. And history shows that the way we have our society structured today it's not the natural order, and there are other ways of structuring society that are very different, and we sort of lack the imagination today to imagine a different society. And she ends it with, "We will not know our own injustice if we cannot imagine justice. We will not be free if we do not imagine freedom. We cannot demand that anybody try to attain justice and freedom who has not had a chance to imagine them as attainable." And so these kinds of dystopian futures that we see in a lot of media and a lot of places actually tend to support the order of society as it is today, and because it simply imagines that you can't actually change anything. It's just a film noir isn't really that much. It's not a new thing. It's not a new imagining of a new relation between people. It's just the same old relation, but it's just sometimes it's just inverted from those things like that. And I wanted to alert people to that, and I also wanted to say hello to Jamie. I think she's a fantastic addition.
Oh, hi,
and
thank you.
So is everybody else. And,
Brenda,
thanks very much.
Thanks so
Yes?
much for your comments, and we will link to that piece in Jacobin.
I got to read Ursula Le Guin now.
Definitely. Oh, you would like her a lot, I think. I forget who said this, but I think it's very true that it's easier for people to envision the end of the world than a world without capitalism. And I think if you look at our cultural output, that's definitely true.
All right, we got a bunch of callers, and I'm gonna try and get to most of them, but it means that we're gonna have to be quick. Calling from a 517 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Gotta be quick.
Hey, Sam, this is Max. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Matt or Max?
Yeah, Matt from Michigan.
Matt from Michigan. What do you got? Gotta be quick.
Yeah, real fast for Matt. You can't hear videos when you're on the call still. And secondly, Michael was talking the other day about how gubernatorial candidates basically suck right now. Did he catch that, or any of you catch that piece from Current Affairs about Abdul Al-Said?
I'm actually just bookmarked it, but I don't remember talking about gubernatorial candidates sucking. Yes, I've heard good. You've heard good things about Michigan.
Someone mentioned it at the beginning of the week.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of
either
weak,
way.
but he sounds really promising.
Yeah, no, he's incredibly good, and we're not entirely sure who's done it, but someone's basically brought his candidacy into question due to the fact that he taught at Columbia for a year and attempted to vote there. And you have to be an elector basically for 4 years. I mean, it's just honestly, it's just sad to see because he's honestly a really, really good candidate.
You know what? If he's a good candidate, people are going to try and do that type of crap because they're going to try and do this. It's probably an opponent.
There's talk that it's either Sheree Tanadar, who's like probably the second most progressive person in the race, but he's kind of like, I don't know, like a millionaire clown, honestly. Or possibly the front runner Driscoll, who, I mean, if you ever listen to this lady talk, she has like all the charisma and cadence of Hillary Clinton when she's talking, but she just kind of sounds like Palin, like her voice, not like in a like she's an okay candidate, but like after you hear that, you literally can never unhear it.
Best of both worlds.
Listen, all right, appreciate the call. We'll check it out.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Calling from a 707 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
I think it is. Is it you?
All right, great. This is Mailman Will out in Northern California.
What's on your mind? Got to be quick.
Okay, gotta be quick. Okay, so I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on that Axios article that ripped Cenk Uygur about 18 years ago for those idiot blog posts he made, and if it's the right idea to, immediately buckle like the Justice Democrats did and just give them up and then start to do some shady stuff because we don't have the stomach to realize that people grow after 20 years. Because from my angle, I started out as an idiot, and I'm progressing still. And I just want to, see your opinions, and particularly Jamie's.
Is this a new article?
One of the better.
Oh, this happened a couple months ago.
No, it came out about 2 weeks ago.
Or I thought it was
maybe
longer
3.
than that.
I thought it was like Christmas, but okay, fair enough. All right, appreciate the call.
Oh, might have been.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So the story, if you're not aware of it, and it was actually from, oddly enough, the same guy who was on the same beat about me with MSNBC.
Right.
I guess
rap.
Mike Cernovich has a pipeline there. But Cernovich dug up, I guess, some blog posts of Cenk Uygur's from 20 years ago. Like literally
10 years ago.
Was it 10?
Yeah, I think so. It was like early 2000s.
I think it was before the Young Turks. So that would have had to have been really early.
Yeah,
but
we can check it.
Okay. Nevertheless, they read like
2000, 2003.
2003. Okay, it's 15 years ago. They read like a 14-year-old boy, not even like I would say,
trying to do a Stern impression.
The smartest of the 14-year-old boys, or I
Right.
shouldn't say smartest, like the emotionally developed of the 14-year-old boys, wrote,
of course,
some of the dumbest stuff. But, to be fair, Cenk was a Republican at that time, and conservative. I don't know if he was a full-on conservative, but he definitely was a Republican. He was a member of the Federalist Society. I mean, so I guess that's
a full-on conservative.
I guess that is a some type of explanation. I don't know if they force you to do that, stuff like that. But he wrote stuff like, all I remember is I just read part of it was like, there's so many like there's a sea of tits around in Miami, and like I want to get wet or something like that.
It was very juvenile.
It was, yes. And I don't know.
Sam, you texted something like that last week to me.
No, I know. Of course.
The Parks Club.
Oh man. But
I back Cenk. He wrote stupid stuff. This is a good example of us not doing this vampire castle whatever. Like he apologized, moved
absolutely.
on.
I mean, I didn't even at the time. I didn't even like
slime merchant. Like, come on.
There's the fact that 15 years ago he would write something like that. I don't see any relevance to it whatsoever. Would I have, if I was Justice Dems, would I have put myself at arm's length from Cenk? I wouldn't have. Can I understand why they would do it in the sense that, like, look, we don't want the controversy. We want to make sure that what we're doing is not in any way inhibited by this association. Yeah, that makes sense to me, too. I mean,
I think that was a bad call on their part.
I would say that I agree with you, except for then I came across this thing he did in 2016 on the Young Turks, where Cenk led a panel on how to pick up chicks, and it was kind of gross. Yeah, I watched the whole thing, and they were being
how to pick up girls.
Yeah. Like one of the guys was bragging about how he it was a little pickup artisty. A little uncomfortably into PUA territory. Like he bragged about how young the girl was who he picked up, and they're like, high five, bro. So like, I don't know. Maybe he has some work left to do. But that said, I don't think that means we should kick him out of the left. I think we should just
he should be ejected.
Tell him that he needs to still do a little better.
Yeah, I mean,
You mean like pick up younger girls?
Oh, no.
A little better.
I mean, listen, like I say, if I was Justice Democrats, I don't know that I would do that necessarily, but I also understand you've got institutions, they have a mission statement, and it is, people don't want to defend other people in that instance.
You guys should watch this video. It's pretty gross.
They built their brand with them. I mean, I thought that was very much the wrong call. They got a lot of work to do regardless.
Calling from a 478 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, you know who this is. This is Jeff, Georgia.
Hello, Jeff from Georgia. Dissident
Hey,
peasant.
how you doing?
Patreon.com.
That is also my name.
What?
Sam, I know Ursula Le Guin, but people, facts and figures, they're fine, but people don't learn with facts and figures. They learn through story and parables. So, Sam, I got a little story for you right now. It ain't going to take long. Once upon a time, my grandpappy, he gathered up all the county's kids for supper. He said, kids, y'all going to need to run real fast here for this cornbread and catfish spread, so you make sure y'all get some. And, Sam, as a bit of a young, anti-authoritarian type, went up to my grandpappy and I said, Pappy, let's imagine that everyone runs as fast as they can to that cornbread catfish spread. They're all going to still need some catfish and cornbread. Someone's still going to be last. This is how me saying you got to make sure everyone, no matter how clever or fast, gets fed. And Grandpappy, he smiled at me. He said, son, that's the neoliberal meritocracy for you. Because there ain't enough middle-class slots for us all to get some cornbread and catfish. And you're going to make a fantastic leftist revolutionary someday. And I said, thank you, Grandpappy. And then he officiated a brief marriage ceremony between my cousins. All right, I got to jump now. I got some property destruction to engage. Y'all have a good one now.
Take it easy. There it is. A nice story that both had a socialist and an anti-Southern message, I guess.
He's allowed.
Calling from a 224 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Got to be quick.
Hey, yeah, I know. I'm Tom. I'm on my way to a job interview, so I have to be quick. I was calling about Elon Musk sending a car into space and just how he is not, like, people talk about the future and how we are kind of headed to killing ourselves off. He's not the answer to that, and he's not a real environmentalist and stuff like that, so basically just screw him.
All right.
About it.
Fair enough. Good luck with the job interview.
I would make those same points in the interview.
That's right. Just head right in there, lay it down. I don't know what you think about Elon Musk.
Awesome.
Here it is.
He's just doing a phone interview, and it had like that horrible reception. He's just like, first of all, I just want to get out of the way. Elon Musk is not our savior. He's a glorified government contractor at best.
Calling from a 206 area code. Calling from a 206.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Hi. I'll stop doing that. Hey, two things. I woke up this morning and I wanted to let you guys know that today is International Clash Day on KEXP. It's happening right now, but it's not competing with you. You can listen to it later or, all time, all day.
Okay.
And, of course, KXP is a community radio station here in Seattle, and that has a lot in common with you guys, and I like to support both things. And the theme of it is that it's about, Joe Strummer thinks that it's, social justice is important. And if we are people and we decide we want to do it, we can do anything. I kind of butchered all that, but I'm a little nervous. Sorry.
All right. That's all right. You're doing great.
Number two.
Yeah.
When I woke up this morning, I was also reading about the Salon piece about the gerrymandering, the documents that have been brought out from the Republicans, 2010, 2011.
The David Daley piece.
Did you see any of that?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
No, please. You did see it. My point was, my question was, is that, I have family members that are just stupid partisan. And I don't understand how you can share that information without, seeming like you're rubbing it in their face. But they're in their information bubbles. And I think that's kind of the big problem is anyone who sees that, who's reasonable would go, well, that's just wrong. That's not democratic at all. But then they're playing by their own.
Why do you need to share it with them?
I'm just saying, because Jesus, these are people I love. And,
I think it's time.
How do you talk to people you love without
step
alienating
back from your family and alienate yourself?
Okay, Janine.
No, listen, I think, look, you can send it to them without comment and say, I think this completely supports your position. And then they'll read it and see what happens. Look, you can't, there's not going to be, all of this stuff is drip, drip, drip. So, they tell you this when you're writing a story or you're writing a script or you're writing, you're doing anything. Don't try and do it all. And so if you don't invest, this is the one thing that's going to change their mind. If you just look at it as this is a raindrop that I'm going to leave here and we're going to try and fill up this bathtub over time, it's much easier. So you send this and you say, oh, check this out. This is weird.
We need to do a segment of Seder analogies and examples.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I don't know
why.
why.
A leaky pipe,
and by the way,
then it drops.
all of you are awesome. All of you are like a little tether to sanity. and analysis that you don't get anywhere else. And I so appreciate that. It makes such a difference in my life, and I think in the lives of my friends that I share the show with. So thank you.
Thank
all
you.
Of you. You're all awesome.
Very sweet of you to say. Thank you. All right, calling from an 850 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Ida from Florida again.
Hello,
Today's
Ida.
my birthday.
Well, then, take this. Happy birthday, Ida.
Oh, thank you. One quick thing. I just wanted to make sure if I really send y'all that stuff, you'll look at it. Remember the ADD stuff?
Look, you
'Cause
know,
I don't want to dig it all up and y'all weren't going to look at it.
well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by dig it up.
Can you refresh our memory on what this material is covering? Oh.
All right. Look, I mean, here's the thing.
It was supposed to be okay. Well, if y'all are seriously going to look at it, I'll look up some stats and I'll reference it and send it in. But I mainly wanted to call today, actually, to kind of share my story with ICE in dealing with them.
Okay, it's got to be quick though, because I'm on a leash
All
today.
right.
All right, what is it?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, my husband, he was born in the Philippines, and he moved. His mom and dad lived on a U.S. territory since he was like 3 months old.
Okay.
He came over on a student visa because at the time they had their own immigration system, and he had to get a student visa. So he overstayed that visa, and we met after he had already been married, and he was trying to get a divorce from this lady, and she wouldn't give him the divorce and everything, and she called ICE on him, actually. So there was, at some point, they came busting into our apartment. I was butt naked on the bed, and they come in busting in, and and yeah, it was pretty fun. They took him away in cuffs, so it was like kind of distressing. But they actually, it ended up being, they were very nice compared to what most of them are. And they let him go on his own recognizance, which, these days, this is 10 years ago.
Right.
So these days, I can't even imagine, like, how it would have ended up.
Well.
But we went through the whole process. It cost us, like, between 10 and 12 grand. Wow. And if it wasn't for my parents, helping us out with it, I don't know that he'd be here, so.
Ida, thank you for sharing that story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And I'll be sure to send that stuff in.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I would also like to say I'm pretty sure that I have ADD, so I'll take a look and see what I think.
Calling from a 330 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, it's Ryan from Ohio, and I wanted to talk about Dennis Kucinich real quick.
Okay.
Okay, he is, I don't know if you guys knew, he is throwing his name into the ring to be governor of Ohio.
Yep, I've heard
and, I just wanted to say he is terrible, he is a moron, and nobody should vote for him in May. He's the embodiment of the dumb left. He spent the past, 5 years on Fox News shilling for Bill O'Reilly, and he spent the past year talking about how there's a deep state conspiracy against Donald Trump, and he might sound like Bernie when he goes on TV, but he's a moron, and he looks like my grandma, so nobody should vote for him.
Well,
vote for Joe Schiavone or Connie Pillage. One of those two. Don't vote for Kucinich.
Appreciate the call. I mean, I haven't followed what Kucinich has been doing for the past couple of years. And I think your grandmother is a wonderful woman, so I would never hold that against him. My opinion of Kucinich over the years has been that he is not rigorous and as thoughtful as I would want. Let me put it that way. I mean, I appreciated that he would raise certain issues within the context of, but right message in some instances, wrong messenger. Calling from a 518 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? (518) area code.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
This is Max from Denver.
Max, what's on your mind?
Two things very quickly. First of all, I want to talk about this budget deal that everyone in the Senate is so optimistic about.
All right, just that one thing. Let's go. What is it? What do you got?
Okay, well, I just don't understand. Like we're going to fund the government for 2 years in exchange for some domestic spending, which we know that Paul Ryan is hell bent on cutting. I mean, worst case scenario, we don't have this amazing blue wave in 2018, and then they fucking cut all these programs anyway. I mean, I don't really see what the benefit is of this idea. And the second thing, very quickly, I'm looking forward to the Broncos picking up Nick Foles and beating the Pats to the next Super Bowl. Bye.
Bye. I mean, I'm not sure. Look, Paul Ryan will either accept this deal and try and get votes for it, or he won't. So I think the idea is that the Senate, wants to project like, oh, we're doing our job. We got something through. And then the House is going to try and pretend the same thing. So, but yes, I'm not. I would prefer the Democrats not to obstruct, frankly. I mean, it was a strategy that worked for the Republicans, and I can't think of a more appropriate time to do more obstructing than now. But calling from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Chris in Pennsylvania.
Hello, Chris. We don't have much time. What's on your mind?
Okay, I don't know if you guys saw about cash bail in Philadelphia, but the city council just unanimously voted to pass a resolution to end the practice.
Oh, that's great.
Of cash bail.
That's great. That just happened. That just happened in Atlanta, Georgia, too. After that new mayor was elected, she pushed through that provision too, as well. I mean, this is a big deal, and I don't know who. I think maybe I interviewed somebody on Ring of Fire about bail. Bail is the interesting thing about bail is it was not initially meant to be a profit-making device. It was not, but it was one of those things that was privatized and ended up becoming a profit source. And so that's really great news. I hope this is a reform that is so desperately needed around the country. That's really great news. And it shows that, what was his name? Krasner, the DA in Philadelphia. Yeah. There was a lot of question as to whether or not he would be able to sort of implement the policies that this guy was so clearly associated with for years. And this is a great sign. Thanks.
Well, yeah, one last thing. With Bob Brady, the machine politics guy in Philadelphia, basically going down, it sort of opened up the floodgates for a lot of true, like, leftist liberal policies in Philly. So
that's great. Great
I think
news.
You're going to see a lot more of this.
Thanks. Appreciate the call.
Didn't you talk about that on your show last night too, Michael?
That was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's pretty
Mike
amazing.
Pappas.
And we also did the frame, though, was that this like grotesque local news report being like, landlords and cops and prosecutors are very upset.
Calling from 914 area code. Who's this?
Hey, Sam, this is Cyrus from New York.
Hello, Cyrus. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk about that issue with Rubin you guys were talking before, and I kind of don't buy this whole spiel that we have to, like, reflect on ourselves. I think that, like, what they try to do is seem fair and balanced, like Fox, and try to put, like, this weird right-wing narrative. You get what I'm saying?
I think. Look, reflecting on oneself is never a bad thing to do. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
you know what they do is. Sorry to cut you off, because I'm an Iranian American, and I have to deal with the burden of proving that I'm more American every day with every, like, stupid show they put on. You know?
Right. No,
and what makes it difficult? Go ahead.
No, I mean, I can only imagine. This has been I don't know how long, if you how old you are, but I remember as a kid.
I'm 41, and I'm 41. I came here in '79 after the revolution.
Okay.
And I could just tell you that, like, throughout my whole life, all you hear is, like, the bad side of, like, Iranian politics. You never hear the good side. You see the bad people, like, always being on shows, whether it's, like, Iran versus U.S. and FIFA, soccer, whatever it is. And you don't get this sort of balanced view in, like, the mainstream press. but then they have to make me accept, like real world politics,
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, I remember when the embassy folks were being held hostage in Iran, and I knew some Iranian Americans and some kids who I think were like going to school here from Iran, and it was horrible. Horrible.
No, I heard it throughout. Yeah, I heard it throughout grade school. The jokes.
Yeah.
They can't distinguish what country you're from. You're always going to be called something linked to some sort of terrorist event that happened before.
Yep.
And got worse after 9/11. And like every time I have to shift my politics so that they can feel comfortable with what I am.
Right.
If I'm left and I don't feel like there should be a war, oh, there you go. Are you from ISIS? Blah blah blah. And it just never ends. There's always shifting that goalpost.
Well, I don't know what to tell you other than there's a lot of a-holes out there, and but there's
I'm
also
saying like the a-holes right now are articulating their message really like secretly under that like free speech thing.
I totally agree. That's why we knock them at every chance that we get. I know.
That's why I enjoy listening to you knock them. But the point is that we have to be careful, like not say, what, they're right. We're doing this wrong. This thing's wrong, because they're never going to ever agree with us.
Well,
never.
Right.
Our
but
politics,
we're talking
our foreign policy, or
right. We're talking about a couple of different things here. I think. I mean, we're talking.
No. I totally agree with what you're saying. But when I talk to people, like it's affecting real world things. Like for people like me, I see engagement with my friends drop off because, like, if I take a trip to Iran and come back, they don't start questioning things. All these little stupid little conspiracies they have.
Well, I'm sorry about that, man, but I appreciate the call.
Thanks, man. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, those guys are garbage. And I think I advocate for some self-critique, but they're the enemy.
All right, the final phone call of the day. A couple other people hanging on, but you haven't been on for very long. Calling from a 585 area code. Who's this?
Hi, this is John from U of R.
John, what is on your mind? You are the final caller of the day, but that doesn't mean that you can take all day.
Oh, my bad. It's my first time calling. I've been listening since I was a sophomore in high school.
I love it. Then you can take a little bit longer.
I just want to say thank you for, trying to help me out, understand who I am. And my political views have definitely grown since then. I've also wanted to talk about my school, U of R, from Rochester.
Yeah.
And how I help facilitate a way to kick out a roommate of mine who was a rapist, and he has committed crimes against my friends. And there's no way the school hasn't shown any, no student has actually known about it, and they push it under the rug. And I think that's one of the biggest crimes, I think, for especially administrations and colleges across the country. There's no real accountability.
That has been a problem for, I don't want to say forever, but I mean that has always been a huge problem on college campuses. Is that administrations will hide reports of things like rape, of crime broadly speaking, but in particular rape, because they don't want it to get out, because they don't want to scare people from going to their schools. But in the meantime, that means less safety for the students, less justice. It's a real problem. Good for you for, at the very least, providing more safety for your classmates and the other people going to the school to get this guy out of there. I don't know what to recommend, but maybe you go and you talk to I don't know. There's got to be some sort of guidance counselors or student counselors that you can speak to and see if you can't figure out a way in which you can get the administration to be more open and transparent with these things.
Yeah, for sure. Recently they had a big argument with a a professor who actually committed a lot of sexual harassment. I believe called Jaeger, and due to the inefficiencies and like lack of culpability towards that professor, the actual president of the school, U of R, actually had resigned, and he didn't. And it seems to me that they rather lose positions than, actually do something about it.
Well, and I'll tell you, there's one other thing you can do too. I would first go to some type of guidance counselor, talk to them, get a lay of the land. But I imagine at U of R you also have a school newspaper, and there may be some people on that school newspaper who might be interested in this story. And then, if for some reason, I don't know what the relationship is between the paper and the administration, but if they're not allowed to print it, then I imagine Rochester has a newspaper, and that's the way that I would go with that. But thanks for listening, and I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and for Mike, I just want to thank you for the impression. Fucking hilarious.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
bye-bye.
you for doing what you're doing.
All right, folks, that's it for our call section of the day. We will read a bunch of IMs, and then we will get out of here. Ronald Noriega, Sir Mitch Cernovich couldn't call today, but hopes to free up tomorrow. Cyrus from New York, you can dig it. I love Sarah Palin. Just want to give Trump a little bit of credit for something I saw the other day. I felt overwhelming pride when it became apparent Trump was not going to cooperate with the feds. I don't know if he's following the tenets of Omerta or the Stop Snitching movement, but these themes made America great once ago and need to be restored.
I did advocate that he should wear a Stop Snitching hat at one point.
I love Sarah Palin. Shout out to Brooksy for taking down Dore yesterday. Jimmy has lots of new friends from the right on his channel. Ivanka Jones. Sam, David Sirota is a great out-of-work journalist, but he's been whining incessantly on Twitter about his resignation from IBT. Do you have something for him to do around there? I mean, I don't blame him for leaving that outfit. Newsweek is just like some type of bizarre crap show. The Disco Stew voted in the Minnesota caucus last night, and I think there's some cause for concern about the governor race. The DFL straw poll was won by Tim Walz. He's probably the least progressive candidate. He's not indicated support for a single payer, and he took money from the NRA. He's a rural Democrat, and his supporters' main argument is he can win rural votes. This is Hillary all over again, chasing the mythical, gettable Republican. Meanwhile, the Twin City progressives will be demotivated. Minnesota's headed for Wisconsin territory. Its state legislature is already GOP-controlled, and there's redistricting coming up. Also, have you guys seen the reports that Carter Page may actually be an informant for the FBI? I don't think so. Seder, don't even know her. Bernie was savage for saying it. Was not enough to be the first Latina. You have to be good positions on the issues. Your show said he had a blind spot on race. We let Blue Dog Gillibrand exile Franken for what? Disagreeing on religion and guest list is not good enough reason for MR to exile Maher.
What? Yo, okay. First of all, enough with this stupid language. I've still done clips as recently, I think, within the last year, where Mar did something really funny on trust fund babies, which I used like 6 months ago. So first of all, you're wrong. And secondly, you're conflating saying Bernie did something inartfully. I happen to disagree with Christian Gillibrand, but Al Franken was accused of like actual wrongdoing. And then the reason I exile Bill Maher is because he supports apartheid, you fucking idiot. And that actually is a line for me. I think that's an injection line for me. I don't see a pro-apartheid left position. That's just me. That's just my purity politics.
Well, in addition to the pro-apartheid position, I did not really appreciate his smug backlash monologue to the Me Too movement. I found it rather unhelpful.
Jonathan Armstead. I didn't even realize that Bill Maher was still doing a show. Sam, I want to encourage listeners to check out something. Bernie Sanders wrote a letter to Lamar Alexander demanding the Big Pharma CEO testify before the United States Senate Committee on Health on what they knew regarding the opioid crisis. Sanders hopes that it can be what the big tobacco testimony did in the 90s. In the letter, Bernie says this crisis did not happen in a vacuum. Thanks to all the work of the many investigative journalists, we know the pharmaceutical companies lied about addictive impacts of drugs. In other words, they knew Goes off. Also, the whole letter is worth checking out, especially for the number of swear words that Bernie throws towards Lamar Alexander. Is that right?
I'm sure that's not true. First of all, Lamar, blow me.
F you.
F you.
Hashtag. Isn't there an also extra layer of disgusting in Senate Democrat strategy of getting Trump and Republicans to extend DACA through mass protests over people being deported? It concedes the deported who are sparking the protests aren't worth fighting for. Yes, I mean, I think that's, I don't know if that's their strategy. It seems to be their strategy to imply that Republicans are going to have problems with that, which could be the strategy. I don't know. I'm like I said multiple times, I'm hard pressed to see a strategy here. Adam MC, while a teacher is getting $1.50 a week on her paycheck, Elon Musk is launching his car into space, and of the thousands of tweets Musk got last night, he managed to respond to Sam Harris. I think American priorities are a little out of whack, indeed. Rogue Paw Patrol, immigrants are lazy except when they're stealing all our jobs. Attorney Andrew, Sam and crew, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I have a real effing problem with Pod Save America. And I'm super proud. Oh, yes.
Nailed it.
I agree with this. The U.S. of care thing needs to die a painful death. Favreau has been getting a lot of shit today by single-payer advocates for supporting the United States of care. Yesterday, he responded by tweeting the following, quote, "What the fuck would I have to gain from bullshitting you? If you don't want to believe me when I tell you I'm for Medicare for all, you don't have to. But I wouldn't have joined the group if they were trying to derail single-payer," unquote. I would ask people to listen to PSA's September 13th, 2017 pod where John literally says he doesn't want to, quote, exaggerate the differences, end quote, between Chris Murphy's Medicare buy-in at 55 with Bernie's medical for all care for all plan. Discussion about the bill starts at 30 minutes of the pod. I mean, yeah, I ain't going to do that.
It was like our boss, like President Obama.
I mean, Swingers was a good movie, but still go fuck yourself.
Ivana Tinkles. Conservatives can win any argument minus context and history, both of which matter than the facts themselves. Someone should let the conservatives know that being prejudiced, segregation laws made worse gangs in this country because they couldn't be involved in something as simple as Boy Scouts. Winky the Anus. Please, Michael, there's nothing better than basking in your own stench while sipping a cup of Joe, especially MR Blend. Rural Oklahoma. Do you guys want me to get one of the Oklahoman Libertarian gubernatorial candidates to call into your show sometime? Yes. I'm friends with all three of them on Facebook. Oh, I would say this is what I would do. I would get one to call in, then I would get the second, and then I would get the third. Please. Your town is next. Damn, Sam. Way to dox Josh from Chicago. I didn't realize Majority Report was adopting the Tim Black Show format. Billy Buckner.
Got cameras, and I mean, I like that.
I assumed that would stay between me and Sam. I just want you to know that.
Dollars to Donuts. His participation on the school board triggered some racists who dropped a dime to ICE on the chem teacher. Similar dynamic to initial Afghan roundup locals willing to use an incredibly cynical law enforcement policy for their own purposes and motivations. Yeah. Angry Modern. What's your opinion on Harris's lack of follow-through on his theories about dangerous Muslims? Have not seen anything on that by Sam Harris. He also supported Clinton over Sanders. Thought Clinton lost because of political correctness. What?
Of course he did.
Just on his own terms. That guy makes no sense. Jay Tingle. Here we go. Hate to bring up TMBS again, but maybe get Andy Richter to come on the podcast to defend his association with the United States of Care, whatever it's called.
we laid into him so.
Who, Andy Richter?
Andy Richter's associated with that. It's so pathetic.
He's like, I'm proud to be one of the 50 like experts and scholars. Like, why are you doing that though?
Well, I don't think he probably knows. I don't know. Patriots are a corrupt organization that was publicly and appropriately put in their place, and I hate the Eagles. Dissident peasant, more like diffident pissant. Come at me, bro. Alt-right custodial. I pee in Sam's coffee cup once a week during my rounds, clearing anarcho-syndicalist detritus from your Social Security report strewn about like Dead Sea Scrolls crypto Jew cave. Robo Cully. Did you see that Nathan Bernard is busy investigating a weird Mike sex tape filmed in the last 18 months? Will it make it into the documentary?
Ew.
Probably not, but I certainly would watch. I would watch it. Theo Dillon. Shall talk about that wind blow? Yeah, okay. Joseph Paulin. Schumer announces 2-year budget deal. No DACA covered. Democrats betray us again. Question: should Democrats just pass 1-year extension of DACA until, say, a new Congress takes over and deal with it? I don't see Trump signing a DACA deal. Here's the thing. The Democrats can't pass anything. They're in the minority. Garage-laced lip service. Also, there's a lot of questions about Sri Thandadar. Apology in advance. Survival Sam series makes it very difficult to believe me that you're a bit of an outdoorsman. Shri Thanadar, before filing to run for governor, he questioned whether to run as a Republican or Democrat. I linked to the piece here. All right, and the final IM of the day. Wow, sorry, we got Christo. Any ideas for effective response to the coming Trump military parade? Some sort of march and/or gathering as protest to the enormous waste associated. Personally,
just black people near them march.
Personally,
I'll upset them.
I don't think. I don't know.
Ignore it.
Mock it.
And mock the hell out of it.
Mock it. Mock it, I think. But all right, folks. Parade. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth